Have you heard about Anchor? Well, it's one of the easiest ways to create a podcast. Not only is it 100% free, but it has a variety of creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or a computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast to other sites such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many others for you. And Anchor even allows you to make money from your podcast without a required minimum listenership. So whether you've been in the podcasting game for a long time or you're completely new to it, Anchor is so user-friendly that it's basically your one-stop shop for making a podcast. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You're listening to First Paso. Hello and welcome to First Paso, a show where we learn together how to take that first paso toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushala, and today's special guest is a consent educator who's actually starting a business called Creating Consent Culture and actually has a book with the same exact title. So without further ado, please welcome Erica Scott. Hi, Erica. How are you doing today?
Hi, Candace. I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. I've been checking in with people because, of course, I'm a pharmacist. My audience knows this. And so I'm always asking people, like, how have the last 2 years been for you? Are you doing okay? Has the pandemic, are you like starting to catch up with everything? How has it been since the pandemic hit?
Oh my goodness. So, I feel so grateful and lucky that I had a safe place to be with like trees around and stuff. And that also I've been able to like stay close with my daughter so I didn't have to worry about her. And my plans when the pandemic started were completely derailed, but I was managed to pivot and write this book, co-write it and get it out. So that was wonderful. So it all worked out for me. Like in that sense, I did end up having financial issues and stuff. But I've been healthy and I can't complain really. Like it's all worked out. And I feel like, yeah, I'm not even sure if the book would have happened if it hadn't been for the pandemic because my co-author was very, very busy. And it was only when the pandemic began that she was able to have time to write with me. So it's been a trip. And I've learned so much. I'm so grateful I had time to read so many books over the course. And I took some anti-racism courses and I've taken, a few different courses. So I'm just so grateful that I had that time to educate myself better as well. So
That's cool. I'm actually curious because I've been just trying to, now that I'm not in school anymore, I've been in school my whole life, like catch up on reading. So what were your like top 3 books that you would have want other people to read that you thought were just brilliant?
oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm in Canada. And so one of my top 3 would be the Reconciliation Manifesto, written by Arthur Manuel. He's a great leader of Indigenous movements in Canada and also globally. And the book is amazing and every Canadian should have to read it. Oh boy. Okay. Top 3. That is hard because there's so many good ones that I read. So there's also an Indigenous Canadian writer named Thomas King, and he has written a lot of great books, but the one that I read in the last year is called Indians on Vacation. And it is just everything. Like he's getting older now and he's just a master of his craft. And this book is like funny, heartbreaking, interesting. It's just like everything. I really loved Ibram X. Kendi's book, How to Be Anti-Racist. And then I just finished Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. The name of the author is not coming to me right now. Sorry about that. But yeah, so many good books. There's just too many good books to read. But I love it.
I mean, that's a good list. I feel like,
guys, if you heard that list, she had the Reconciliation Manifesto, Indians on Vacation. That title right there, Indians on Vacation, just sounds really intriguing. How to be anti-racist and why I'm no longer talking to white people about race. Like, thank you for the book suggestions, because I feel like a lot of us are trying to read more books and educate ourselves better about not just our own cultures, but the subcultures and the cultures that border our own. So thank you for the book
Oh,
suggestions.
I have to add one more. Sorry.
Okay.
Sidney Poitier. I loved his autobiography. And so when he passed, I was like, I want to listen to it. So I went to buy it on Audible. And then I found out that he had another book called Letters to My Great Granddaughter. And I got that. And oh my God, it's so, so good. Everyone
Mm.
will want to listen to that. And if you listen to it, you get to hear it in his voice. And he's so amazing. So yeah, he's
Oh,
such a philosopher and so deep and funny too. Yeah. So that book is everything too.
I love that. Letters to My Great Granddaughter by Sidney Poitier. Guys, add that to the list. That's awesome. I love this. Thank you so much.
You want to just talk about books? Because
I was like, let's talk books now. We have shifted to a Barnes and Noble episode. Assigned sponsored by Barnes and Noble. I love that. Okay, so see now I'm really curious. Tell us a little bit about yourself from your perspective.
Okay, so a little bit about myself. I call myself a queerdo, and I would consider myself non-binary. So I go by she, they. Oh, I should say, and live now and have lived most of my adult life on the stolen and unceded territory of the Sinaics Nation. And that's a whole story. But I grew up mostly in Ontario, and the kids called me it. Like, I never fit in. I've done a lot of different things in my life, but I guess for the most part, worked as an electrician, worked running the grid for the power company for a while. And so there's a lot of this and that I've done in my life. So, and a really defining factor in my life was that I was sexually abused as a child. And that has been challenging for me throughout my life, the impacts of that. And that's part of what's made me who I am and what I'm doing now.
Thank you for your bravery to share that, because I know it's not always easy, especially when we still deal with that stuff. I too am a victim of sexual abuse in childhood. So, and I know several of my listeners are as well. So greatly appreciated that you would even bring that up. So, what for you then is considered a crucial first fossil experience for you? Do you mind unpacking that for us?
No, not at all. I love talking about it because it was really like such a moment of change in my life. And I'm so grateful for it, even though at the time I thought I was going to die. So, yeah, it started with I think because of the abuse as in childhood, and part of that, I was strangled. And it just left like this memory in my body that I haven't been able to shake entirely. And then that, the dynamics that created for me, a lack of self-esteem, trouble with my boundaries, and all that led to a lot of stress in my life, where I was just always fighting. And I mean, there's plenty to fight, and it's not, but I definitely put myself in situations where life was a constant fight. So yeah, I became an electrician, and I was working a lot of the time with men who are not like entirely evolved a lot of the time. And I sometimes, quite often actually, I'd be the only woman on the job site.
Mm,
You can just imagine, like, I had to fight all the time. And I mean, it was good in the sense that I had to have boundaries, and I had to work on my boundaries. But it was still really stressful. And, when you're just in stress all the time, I mean, I'm sure like that, after a while it takes a toll on the body. And so I think I was like in my like early to mid 40s, and I'm 56 now. So around 2012, I had just a total breakdown. My thyroid was going and my adrenals were exhausted. I didn't know at first what was happening. I just knew that I was just had no energy. I was feeling crazy, because when your thyroid goes, it has to do with your emotional regulation and everything. It has to do with everything. So it impacts that. And I was limping all of a sudden for no reason that I could tell. My feet felt weird, and I had to go on short-term stress leave from my job. And I mean, thank goodness I had that. That was wonderful. So at the time I was working at the power company, and that was a stressful job too. Like, you sit in front of like a whole bank of screens for 12 hours at a time, sometimes during the day, sometimes at night. And that messes with you too when you're going back and forth between those shifts. I was in, like, I mean, if I made a mistake, I could kill someone. So, I mean, it doesn't get more stressful than that, right? And I also had a teenager at home with special needs on the autistic spectrum. And I was a single mom. And so it all just came crashing down. And I was laying in bed there, just done. And like, I have had to put myself back together a few times in my life. And this time I just felt like, why bother? Like, I'm so exhausted. Like, I just can't. I don't have it in me to do it again. Like, I got to die sometime. I might as well just die now. Like, I guess I'm dying and it's fine. And I was scared about losing everything. But then, as I was laying there with no energy and trying to figure out how to just even get it together to do anything, I started to realize that, because at first I was like, oh God, I'm going to lose this job that I love, and I'm going to lose my house. I was finally able to buy a house, and I'm going to lose it. And, I finally have a nice car. I'm going to lose it. And then as I was laying there, I was like realizing, well, actually, you know what? I don't actually love this house that much, and I don't love the car at all. And I mean, it's nice, and I don't love this job. Actually, I think I kind of hate this job. And you know what? I don't love myself. I haven't loved myself for a while. And once I was started to grapple with and confront my reality, that I had just been, flogging myself to do all the things that I thought I should do, but not like, really thinking about, what do I want? And I mean, I used to make lists all the time, to-do lists, do this, do this, do this, do this. And it was all about what to do to make sure everything worked for everyone around me. Pretty much. I wasn't even on the list. There was nothing about me on the list. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of moms and a lot of women do this. I mean, I'm sure it's just human in general too. So yeah, I was very lucky at the time. I was able to go see this acupuncturist, and they said, you sounds like you need to learn to love yourself. And I was just like, I don't know how. I am crying and like, I don't know. And they had great advice. They were like, look, just treat yourself as if you're someone you love. Like, think of somebody you love and how you would treat them, and do that for yourself, and just fake it till you make it. And I did that, and it really does work. So I would do like nice little things for myself once a day, and then a little bigger, nice little things once a week, and then a little bigger, nice little things once a month. And I started putting the things that I wanted to do at the top of the list. I started throwing the list out. And, over this time, I was starting to be able to get up and do a few things and stuff. And what happens is your cells in your body start to realize somebody loves us when you treat yourself better, right? So that was amazing. And I started meditating, and that helped me a lot. And I started doing like meditating while I was walking, and this amazing thing happened. Like, I started to have compassion for myself. Like, I can't tell you what a big difference that made in my life. I almost felt like it changed my sense of time and space. Like, it was so amazing to just take it easier on myself and be like, you know what? It's okay to fall apart. It's okay to be me. It's okay to not be achieving something right now. And it's okay to just be. And being human is hard, and that's okay. Like, to just be easy on yourself about it. Yeah, I just felt like this whole thing shifted in my life with that. And all of a sudden I felt like I was in a different world almost. My physical issues were enough that for me to go back to the job I was doing before would have been really challenging. And I tried to, but I kept breaking down in tears and having to leave. And I just decided that's it. I'm just not going to do that anymore. Like whatever it takes, I'm just not going to do that. And I went back on the tools, went and did work in the field, electrical work in the field. But also at the same time, I started to look into like, what can I do? I need to do something meaningful in my life. I need to do something that means something to me, that makes me feel like I have a purpose in my life. And I was looking around online, and I found this thing called Cuddle Party. And I was just like, what's a cuddle party? I need to go to a cuddle party. And I found out the closest one to me was like 8 hours drive away, because I was living like here in the boonies in Canada. So I decided I'm just going to have to become a cuddle party facilitator so that I can have cuddle parties here. And so I traveled to go learn how to do that. I did the first introductory session, and it was amazing. It was everything that I had hoped it would be. So cuddle party. Yeah. And I want to be clear, like there's an official cuddle party, and then I have heard of people having cuddle parties that aren't what I would consider cuddle parties. So the official cuddle party is a non-sexual touch and communication workshop. And it lasts about 3.5 hours. And the first hour is all about the rules. It's called the Welcome Circle, and it's all about the rules of engagement during the cuddle party. And it's basically consent education. So there are rules like you don't have to cuddle anyone ever at cuddle party. When you're a no, say no. When you're a yes, say yes. And one of my favorites, when you're a maybe, say no, to give yourself the space to figure out what you really want and for clarity. But that was life-changing for me, because most of my life, I've had such a hard time saying no, as a lot of people do. And often I would say maybe when I really wanted to say no, because it seemed like nicer than saying no. But then I'd go home and I'd have this thing hang over my head. I said maybe. Now I got to figure out what to do. Like I have to make up an excuse, and then I would come up with it was just terrible, the whole thing. And when you just say no when you're no, or say no when you're actually a maybe, you just have this space. It's just, there's none of this hanging over your head. It's just space to figure out, well, what do I actually want? Which is another thing that people really struggle with, is knowing what they want and asking for what they want. So just to say, cuddle party is amazing, and it changed my life, and I loved being a cuddle party facilitator. And I loved seeing during the welcome circle, people would be like, they'd be having these epiphanies and be like, oh my God, this is so simple. Why haven't I been doing this all my life? And, saying like, these things are so, it seems so obvious once you do it, but how come we haven't talked about it ever in our lives this way? And I love all of Cuddle Party, the parts where people actually get to get their platonic touch needs met as well, and also get to practice saying no in a safe place. I love all of it, but I was especially like, this welcomes, everybody needs this welcome circle, like these exercises, because it's not just going over the rules. I would actually do exercises to practice them. So we'll practice saying no and yes in different circumstances, and practice asking for what we want, and practice recognizing, being really specific about what we ask for, and practice recognizing, when what it looks like when someone's saying no, but they mean yes, or if they're saying yes, but they mean no. And it's done in a way that it's fun. Like there's a lot of laughter. People have a really good time during the welcome circle. So I was like, this is so great. Everyone needs to do this. And so I was telling everyone, come to Cuddle Party. And there's so many people that were like, I'll never go to a cuddle party. Like, don't even talk to me about it again. Like, that's just creepy. Or, and I try to explain like, yeah, you don't have to do anything you don't want to at cuddle party. And they'd be like, you're going to make me cuddle someone. I know it. Like, so the people who actually, who don't trust that they can assert their own boundaries and who need it the most are the ones that are least likely to actually go to a cuddle party. And I also started, because cuddle party, even though it's non-sexual, it's for people 18 and up. And I started thinking like this, we need to get this to younger people, like these exercises, but maybe slightly modified. So there's like less touching involved and there's nothing intimidating about it. So I think it was right around when Me Too was really like going, nuts in the media. But I think it was actually a little before that I approached. So, I should have said Marsha Baczynski, who co-founded Cuddle Party, and is my co-author in the book. She was the person, lucky for me, who was training when I went to get my initial training, because she hadn't been doing it for a while, and I don't think she did it again after that. So it was just kind of like fate that I got to meet her that time. And when I had this idea, I approached her and I said, look, I'd really like to take some of these exercises from the Welcome Circle, and I'd like to add some more and do some stuff and make a workshop that's for young people or for anybody like over the age of 10 or 11, and that doesn't involve cuddling or touch or anything, so that, we can get it out to more people. And she was like, yeah, go for it. So I did that. And at the time I was living in Honolulu. And I started, workshopping the workshop, and it went over really well. And I kept getting great feedback from people, like saying that it changed their lives and that like they really loved, one of the things we do is we teach people to thank others when they say no. So if you really want to blow someone's mind, the next time someone says no to you, thank them. Like, thank them for being clear about what they don't want, or thank them for taking care of themselves, or, thank them for letting you know what their boundaries are. And that way, when we do that, we create safety for people around us to express their true boundaries and express what they want. And yeah, it's really shifts things. So a lot of feedback around that really changes things for people when they start doing that. Feedback from particularly men saying that they really loved learning ways to make people around them feel more comfortable. So I came back to Canada in 2019, partly because this whole like kerfuffle with my health insurance where it just kind of fell apart. And I was just about to start doing this new workshop in schools, and the pandemic hit. So the year before that, before I left Honolulu, I went with my Honolulu Women Speak group. Yay, they are amazing. And I did my first ever girl trip to a bigger Women Speak conference that was happening in Sedona. And during that conference, I woke up one morning and it was just in my mind, turn it into a book. Like, the workshop has to be a book. So I got in touch with Marsha again and I said, hey, would you write this book with me? And she said, yeah, sure. And then that summer, I went to work and started writing. And I was like, okay, Marsha, are you going to write this book with me? And she was like, yes, I am. And then, but she was just always so busy. So when the pandemic hit, finally she had time and we got the book written. And so it's all been amazing. And I just want to say, like, when that first step happened, when my life basically, I felt like it was all falling apart. And I really felt like either I was going to die or I was going to lose everything. I had no idea what would come in the future. To choosing to love myself, choosing to have compassion for myself, and choosing to just take a chance on myself. Because ever since then, it's been really just one foot in front of the other. I used to think I'd have to have things planned out way ahead of time. And I've just been trusting like that I'm on the right path, and it's all come together. So it's been amazing. And it's still like that. It's like, okay, I thought I knew what was going to happen this spring, but now it's in the last month, it's changed and it's going to look different. So, but it's working out, That was a very long story, eh?
I loved it though. Oh my word. It's so relatable. That sense of like, man, life is falling apart. I can't do this anymore. I hate my job. I hate the people I'm working around. I don't like where I am. I hate me. Like, the number of people that feel this way, but not everyone says anything about it. Like, some
Right.
people feel like they just have to push through it
Yeah.
and just suck it up. And their mental health and their emotional health and their physical, like everything just starts to deteriorate in them. And we're not made to keep up with so much negativity in ourselves like that. So just the fact that you you pretty much made a choice. Yes, someone suggested to you, like, why don't you, you know, try loving yourself as though you were wanting to love someone else. You could have completely ignored that.
That's
You
true.
didn't have to take that advice. Cause some people, like, when they hear things like that, they're like, "Oh yeah, I love myself." That's been the problem the whole time. So I'm throwing that in the trash. Like, I'm not doing that, and yet that's I loved hearing that, because that's something that I talk about in my coaching sessions with people, as far as, sometimes you can't wait for that magical person to show up and speak into you. You're always with you. So even if you don't believe it, that's totally fine, because oftentimes if we encounter a friend, right, who's super down on themselves, everything is going wrong in their lives, you believe for them something that they don't believe for themselves.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
that dynamic is normal, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily stop you from continuing to pour into them until it finally becomes a thing where they're like, actually, I'm starting to see what you're speaking over me as truth instead of what I've been carrying in my spirit as truth. So you're absolutely allowed to do the same thing for yourself. Like, you can both be in the space of, I'm going to speak to you as if I believe that this is for you, and also be the same person who doesn't believe any of the words I'm saying. Cuz that's how the dynamic usually starts in general. So
Yeah.
yes, keep talking to yourself, keep doing those small things, keep looking for those things that you will look out for in another person that would be like, "Ah, I actually like that about you." And it's like this weird little quirk about you, but like, it's very you, and getting used to hearing your own voice say those things about yourself is something that I don't think we give ourselves enough credit in the level of power we have to do that. So I love that you did that, and how impactful it was, to the point where, like, you've co-authored a book, you're starting a business. Like, it's completely shifted the things that you probably could have ever imagined doing. And I'm curious because, like, for me, even though I had, like, the sexual molestations and things like that growing up, at the same time, still, surprisingly enough, physical touch and quality time were my top love languages. You would think they wouldn't be because of abuse and whatnot, but it's like what drives me.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm curious how you, like, why did you feel comfortable attending a cuddle party, just from hearing just like the name without fully understanding what that mean? Why were you drawn to that versus something different based on your background?
It's the same for me. Yeah. Despite everything, touch and affection are my main love language as well. And always felt like I never get enough. And it might be because of my very early years. Like, I was born on an island in the Pacific, Yap Island, and my mom was working, and a lot of the time I was raised by a woman in the village, and I was passed around. I was a village baby, and I think I got a lot of good loving and affection when I was a baby, and have felt like I never got enough sense. And there is something, like, when you go to a cuddle party, partly what it is the most amazing things can happen when people feel safe. When people understand, if I say no, it will be honored. If I ask for something, the person will honestly tell me if they're a yes or a no. I don't have to worry about them doing something they don't want to. And you set up these parameters, and that no one's going to try to do anything sexual, and everyone has agreed to the rules, and you set up these parameters, and then these amazing things can happen because you feel safe. So not only is it wonderful to get more platonic touch in my life, there's something special that happens at cuddle party where you might find yourself in a cuddle puddle with like 5 or 6 people, and there's something so grounding about that. And I think maybe it goes back to, like, when we were more in a village. We were more, everyone kind of cuddling up and sleeping around the fire at night kind of thing, because you just get this sense of safety on such a deep level, like that you're okay because you're part of this group, and it just, you feel it, and it's just, yeah, it's hard to describe. So yeah, I'm drawn to that. That is, for me, that is something that I have always wanted more of in my life. And yeah, so I love being able to make that happen.
Yeah. I love that. I'm very much a cuddler. I grew up in a family that cuddles a ton. And
Yes.
so I always feel like the weirdo, especially when I have friends who don't like they're like, please don't touch me. And I'm like, but I want to hug you. Like, like and I have to like hold myself just like I'm like dying to like pat you on the shoulder or just any type of healthy contact. And they're like, please don't touch me, please don't touch me. So I feel like I'm constantly in this battle because I think out of all of the love languages that you can have, that is the most intimate one, right? Because like words of affirmation, I mean, you don't have you don't have to be anywhere close to anybody to pour words into them. Gifts, you don't have to be anywhere close to get. But physical touch, it's a hard one to have as your number one. And so I think it's really cool that there are spaces like cuddle parties where people can enter into a space being reassured of the safety, because I think that's probably where people would be hesitant to just hug a stranger or just be in any kind of physical touch with a stranger. It's the uncertainty of what's
Mhm.
behind this. But for something that is like, no, we create the environment where they have to be respectful. And like that's just what we taught. We don't accept anything lower than consent, like honest, true consent. That's where it's like, okay, that's different, right?
Yeah.
That's something you can probably enter into and and learn a lot of that those consent boundaries that we're not great as a society of teaching that to people.
It's a cult. We live in a culture of coercion, really, and
Yeah.
not consent. And
Yeah.
it's so powerful when you get into, when you feel that, when you get into a cuddle party, or I'm hoping that we're creating the same kind of feeling in the workshop that, um, I call it the consent culture intro workshop, that's laid out in the book. Um, but when you get into that feeling of like, this is what it feels like to be respected and be able to feel safe to ask for what you want and feel able safe to say no, and like, you feel it on an embodied level. And then when you go out into the world and people are like, oh, come on, or whatever, it's just that much more obvious. Oh, okay, they're trying to manipulate me, or they're trying to push me, and I don't have to. I am allowed to say no. And and that's why I feel like it's so important to get these exercises and skills to young people, because you have to feel it in your body and you have to practice it. Like for me, like, I know, I'm still like, I still have to practice, 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 because I have so much unlearning to do.
Yeah. I think a lot we most of us have a lot of unlearning to do in that area. So I'm thankful that there are people like you that are not only putting it into practice for yourself, but then you're taking that out into the world and saying like, I really want other people to know this because I'm seeing the benefit for myself, and it could really impact the world if we literally taught each other proper consent and respect and love behind all of that. That could solve a lot of problems. A lot.
It's actually pretty revolutionary when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, for sure.
It
And if
is.
they actually really believe that they, if they could feel it in their bones that they actually have like the right to say no, and
Yeah.
when it comes to their bodily autonomy, and
Yeah. So, what would be your advice for someone who may be right at that space where you were when you were thinking about that first Paso and like what you were gonna do with where you were with life just being so unhappy and
Mhm.
not loving yourself, not loving what you were doing, the community you were in. What if you had like any 1 to 3 things to say to encourage someone in that space? Or even someone who might have been abused as a child and is still trying to process how to get to a space where they're not flinching or jumping at the idea of someone trying to provide them a healthy version of touch that they didn't get when they were younger. What would you say to them?
So I'll just say if you're at a point in your life where you're breaking down and it's hard to imagine the future because all you can see is that everything you've done so far is falling apart, just don't give up. Things have to fall apart for good things to for other good things to happen. And your future could be so different and better than you could have ever imagined it. And like I would say, like, that advice that I was given is so good. Like, treat yourself like you would treat someone you love and figure out a way to do that, even when it seems difficult to do it. And I know at the time I had a hard time. People were saying, oh, you have to use these positive affirmations. And I was like, I love myself. And I was like, I don't believe it. It's not working for me. So I say things to yourself that you can believe, like, instead of saying, I love myself, if that really just feels like you're lying to yourself, say, I'm learning to love myself. Because you can believe that. Even if you're not quite there yet, you can believe that you're learning to do it. And then for me, what really helped was doing the things, like letting myself do the things I really wanted to do that felt good for me, that felt good for my body, and making myself a priority. Yeah, try that and see what happens. In terms of getting past childhood sexual abuse, so, we talk a lot about PTSD, but there's also post traumatic growth. And that's post traumatic growth is actually more prevalent and more common than PTSD. And what happens with post traumatic growth is you are able to integrate the experience and and learn from it and grow from it in such a way that ultimately it benefits you and people around you. And there are ways you can actually get from PTSD to post-traumatic growth. And the very most important thing is to find a safe group of people who understand where you're coming from, that you can talk about your experience with. It's so important to share your experience, your traumatic experience, but in a safe place with people who will be supportive. And then I know that one of the things is then, like, what I'm doing now is to take the what you've learned from the experience and turn it into something meaningful, something with a purpose, so that you can feel like you're taking lemons and making lemonade. You're using what happened and what you went through to try to help others and try to help them make the world a better place. That can really help transform the whole thing for you. But if you Google post-traumatic growth, you'll see there's information about ways to support yourself.
Mm, wow. I appreciate that. You are a sweet soul, Erica. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and teaching us about how you can grow into a space that you can heal and you can love yourself and you can get to a space where healthy intimacy is available to you as long as you know your own boundaries and you're confident in them. And practicing that is always acceptable at any stage of life as we evolve and grow and learn more about the world that we're in. Just inviting us into that space. I think this is the perfect time to be talking about that, especially after COVID. Honestly,
Mhm.
I think a lot of people are trying to redefine what is our healthy boundaries again because there's so many layers of healthy boundaries now that are very confusing and it has affected us globally in as far as how we are connecting with people and people are feeling deprived of healthy physical touch, and some of them are not knowing what to do once they are able to be in contact with people. They're frozen. They just aren't quite sure. So I think it's warranted that really as a world we really start reassessing what is healthy boundaries, what is loving yourself, what is accepting versus rejecting, what is your yes, what is your no, and going into a new space in Earth's history where we're evolving in the right direction, on the right side of intimacy than we have in the past. So
Hopefully that would be wonderful.
that would be really nice. I'm gonna be hopeful on that one. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us and share your story. How can people contact you or find you on social media? Maybe check out your business or your book?
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, so the book is called Creating Consent Culture, a handbook for educators, but it's good for parents and anyone who leads youth in any way. And really, the workshop is really good for any humans age 10 and up. So yeah, it doesn't have to just be for young people. And my website is creatingconsentculture.com. And there's a way to contact me there. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn under Creating Consent Culture. Please feel free to reach out. I love talking to people, and I would love to collaborate with anybody and everybody that I can. I think collaboration is the way of the future, and I'm open to any ideas around collaborating.
Love that. Guys, please hit her up. I think what she's doing is really impactful, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. So, thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. If there are any topics that you want discussed here in the future, any situations that you're going through, feel free to shoot me a DM, hit me up on social media at Candace Olushala, or you can text me at 859-800-3396. And let us know, how did you relate to this episode? What were the things that you guys were processing while Erica shared her story? And where do you feel like you need to go from here? Love to support you guys on your journeys through learning your boundaries and knowing that you are absolutely allowed to love yourself and go on the journey of figuring out how to do so. If you want to support further, you can always go to www.firstpaso.com, and there's a ton of ways there that you can see what I am doing and ways that you can give back to this podcast through a variety of ways. But the best way you can do that is to share, like, subscribe, comment, leave a review on any episode that you love, and would love your continued support. Thank you guys for the support that you have given over the last couple of years, and looking forward to continue taking first pasos with each and every one of you. So thank you guys so much. Take care, stay safe. Rona's still out here. So, wash your hands. And uh, and then also we're still praying for the Ukraine and Russia. My heart is just so sad for, it's like two brothers being pinned against each other because their parent wants them to fight and they don't want to fight each other. So it's heartbreaking, but we're all thinking about you. We're hoping the best and hoping that this ends sooner than it lasts. So just wanted to say that. And Erica, again, thank you so much for coming on my show. Take care and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Candace. It was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.